In the news this week, ministerial confusion brought doubts over the future of the Perth freight link.
Plus, drugs, guns and cash seized as police stepped up on the war on drugs.
This is the Evening News with Ivan Leung and Daniel Staniskov.
Good evening. The Senate inquiry into the $1.6 billion Royal Highway extension continued this week. As there's been confusion between the Premier and the Minister towards the future of Stage 2, locals continued to voice their anger over the possibility of losing their homes.
Finance Minister Matthias Cormann and Transport Minister Dean Nolde announced good news about the new lanes on the Kwinana Freeway, but conflicting messages about the future of the Perth Freight Link Stage 2 remained as a distraction.
Who do we trust? Should we trust you or should we trust the Premier?
No, it's not a matter of trusting myself or the Premier. We know the importance of completing the freight link through to the port.
More doubts were raised about the PFL this week after the Premier refused to draw a construction timeframe. The Minister later apologised for the confusion.
The Premier's right. We haven't defined the route into the port at this point in time. And I've said that I'm responsible and I apologise for the people of Palmyra.
Cockburn Mayor said the community had been hung out to dry as mixed messages brought uncertainty to residents who might lose their homes due to the construction.
They're continue to be very concerned about the lack of information.
But one thing is certain, the PFL Stage 1 building contracts will be signed by the end of the year. At this stage, the government has refused to release the documents to the Senate inquiry. Meanwhile, the opposition said the government failed to deliver an effective public transport plan.
This government's been in for 7 years. They've done basically nothing on public transport.
Darren McErlain, WAMN News.
Another drug offender has been caught this week. 60 grams of cannabis, cash and ammunition were found during a vehicle search in East Victoria Park. Cesilla Faustina has more.
There had been more progress made on the war against drugs after a 49-year-old man had been caught with 65 grams of drugs, cash and firearms. The drug offender was pulled over by the Central Metro Response East officers around 3 p.m. on Thursday on Harrow Street in Dayton, where 60 grams of cannabis, 5 grams of cocaine, $1,800 cash and 50 rounds of .22 ammunition had been detained. The arrest eventually led to a search of an East Victoria Park home where a number of firearms and a taser were seized. The drug offender has been charged and is due to appear in court in September. Cecilia Faustina, WAMN News.
Human rights activists accused private security companies of obtaining profits unethically after a former guard spoke out about the mistreatment in a Nauru detention centre. The ABC's 7:30 report also revealed that the Green Senator Sarah Hanson-Young was allegedly under surveillance operation, as the Senate inquiry into the allegations of misconduct is due in the next few days.
It's inappropriate, but I don't believe she was ever put at risk. That's very different from the situation facing the asylum seekers who are at risk, who are harmed, who are psychiatrically destroyed by what they face every day on Nauru.
In an act to reduce youth crime, $195,000 was allocated by the WA government to fund major clinical research into fetal alcohol spectrum disorders by the University of Western Australia, which will allow studies of FASD on young people below the age of 18. Mining power broker Andrew Forrest has expressed his support to the project.
These scourges are booming right across Australia. They're causing untold harm to our societies, and they must be addressed.
Hopefully, as time goes on, there will be diagnostic centres all across Western Australia so that these children can be helped.
USA and Cuba have taken a major step into reconciliation with the reopening of the US Embassy in Havana. Secretary of State John Kerry hosted the flag-raising ceremony as other citizens looked on. In his speech, Mr. Kerry urged Cuba to embrace democracy so citizens can have a say on their future.
And indeed, we remain convinced the people of Cuba would be best served by a genuine democracy, where people are free to choose their leaders, express their ideas, practice their faith, where the commitment to economic and social justice is realized more fully, where institutions are answerable to those they serve, and where civil society is independent and allowed to flourish.
Beijing has banned the production and transport of hazardous chemicals until early September after an apocalyptic explosion in Tianjin. The death toll has risen to at least 57 people, 21 of them were firefighters. More than 700 people were injured. Witnesses described the fireball was at least 100 metres tall. Many buildings at the scene were flattened with wreckage of new cars and cargo containers scattered across the debris field. Authorities said the power of the second explosion was equivalent to setting off 21 tonnes of TNT.
And on Newsnight this week with Blake Danielczak, aviation commentator Jeff Thomas was live from Perth to discuss the misinformation of MH370 debris. Also, the YWCA Canberra's Zoa Patel discussed the launch of a new program which aims to prevent sexual assault and gender-based violence. You can listen to the program 5 p.m. on Yass FM and online.
And those are the top stories you need to know this week.
More news on our website 24/7, and we'll see you next Sunday. Good night.